Thank you for choosing Whispering with Pineapple to listen to stories. For each series, I will release 2 versions, Vietnamese and English. If anyone wants to practice passive English listening, you can choose the English version. If there are any mistakes during the translation process, I hope everyone will give feedback and I will take it into account. I've also included the text version below for your reference.
I've always believed that some people are meant to walk into each other's lives, not with a thunderclap, not in the wake of a storm, but simply on a sun-drenched afternoon, with a laugh, a glance that seems incidental. Just like that day when I met KINH. We were dragged along on a weekend getaway by a mutual friend to Than Thai Lake, a place famous for sunsets that dye the water a shade of ripe honey. That friend was Lam Kavi, my dorm roommate, heiress to a well-known real estate empire in Hangzhou. Kavi had a penchant for parties, beautiful things, and matchmaking like it was an elegant pastime reserved for the idle rich. That day she beamed, hooked her arm through mine and whispered, "Come on, Tin Huen, this guy is my cousin's friend. He's at the police academy and most importantly, he's single. If I don't tell you about him, you're missing out." I glanced at her and smirked faintly. "You say that like I'm absolutely desperate." "Well, you are single." She blinked innocently, her face the picture of earnestness. I sighed. In the end, I went. Not because I was particularly interested in her so-called cousin's friend, but because Ka Vai had already lied to everyone, saying I really wanted to come. Her matchmaking schemes were always bold, always unstoppable, leaving no room for rejection. We arrived at the lake one breezy afternoon in late April. The sun was gentle, the wind rustled through the willow trees, and something about it reminded me of pages from Zhu Xun's novels, where spring always carried the shape of a tender memory. Ka Vai pulled me around to greet everyone. Her circle was full of polished, well-spoken elites, dressed to perfection, eyeing me like I was an outsider in a world framed by limitless black credit cards. And then I saw him. He stood alone by the wooden bridge holding a cold soda can, tall, lean, cropped hair in a military cut, gaze lost somewhere on the shimmering water. His quiet presence was in stark contrast to the lively chatter around us. "That's him," Ka Vi whispered, eyes sparkling like she'd just unveiled a family heirloom. "His name's Chen Kai-lin, senior year at the police academy. Quiet, serious, clean-cut, no smoking, no drinking, a great athlete, top of his class. The literal definition of boyfriend material." I looked again, not because her glowing reviews swayed me, but because something in his eyes unsettled me, a sadness unspoken, a memory not yet faded, or simply a silence too genuine for this artificial crowd. He turned when he caught my gaze. I hesitated but offered a polite smile. He nodded and spoke his first words, took me by surprise. "You were the one who helped that old man earlier, weren't you?" My brows rose. He continued, his voice low and warm, with a sincerity I hadn't expected. "When you ran over to help him out of the way of that scooter, I was across the street. I saw everything." I remembered. Just as we neared the lake, an elderly man had fallen from his electric bike. It had skidded several meters. People stood around watching, but no one moved. I dropped my bag and rushed over, helped him to the curb, and called an ambulance. I hadn't thought anyone noticed. "I just did what anyone should do," I said. He studied me. "But not everyone would." I fell silent. There was something between us that didn't have a name, not quite a spark, not quite emotion. Just the feeling of being truly seen. That afternoon passed in scattered conversations, with his gaze lingering on me from time to time, not intrusive, not intense, just quietly sincere. Ka Vai kept nudging me with a mischievous grin, whispering, "Well, isn't he totally your type?" I only shrugged. We parted ways at sunset, the lake bathed in gold. As I was about to get in the car, Kai-lin called out and handed me a small note. "I didn't get your number. I'm not great at texting like some teenager, so you can message me first, if you want." I took it, mildly surprised, not because he asked, but because it didn't feel like a line. It felt real. When I looked up, he had already turned away, but I noticed the tips of his ears were flushed red. Under the fading light, his tall frame etched itself into my memory like a quiet echo. I smiled, not knowing why. That night, I saved his number. Didn't text, just saved it. 3 days later, he messaged me first. I was going to wait for you to text, but you never did. I replied 10 minutes later. I thought you didn't know how to text? He replied instantly. For you, I learned. I stared at the screen. And in that fleeting moment, I knew something was about to begin, not loud, not hurried, just a trace of warmth slipping into the days I once thought would be endlessly lonely.
Beijing, China, Tsinghua University. They often say that feelings born from a first glance fade just as quickly as a spark. I never believed that. Not because I naively trusted in love at first sight, but because some things don't need a name to carve themselves into memory. Like the look in Chin Kai-lin's eyes that day, one glance, and I remembered it for life. After that message, he started texting me every day. Not many words. Sometimes it was just, "Have you eaten? It's raining in Beijing today. Did you bring an umbrella?" I spent the whole afternoon at shooting practice. My hand hurts a little, but thinking of you makes it bearable. The way he cared wasn't flowery or dramatic. But it stirred something in me, like an old song long forgotten, suddenly brought back to life by someone's touch. About a month after our first meeting, he asked me to dinner. It was the first time I'd ever seen a man so nervous just to book a dinner table. He arrived 30 minutes early and picked a small Japanese restaurant on the upper floor of a mall in Chaoyang district. Warm yellow lighting, soft jazz humming like a whisper, and a table just for two by the glass, overlooking the bustling Third Ring Road. When I arrived, he stood up abruptly and awkwardly pulled out a chair for me, like a college boy stepping into adulthood for the first time. "You don't have class tonight?" he asked, his voice quiet as always, but his eyes betrayed a hint of nervousness. "Tonight, I wanted a break," I replied, gently, as if giving him permission to step a little closer. He smiled. A faint smile that made my heart flutter. I noticed that when he smiled, the corners of his eyes curved slightly, like a soft sunlight. We talked about everything. School, friends, how he once lost his student card and hid in the bathroom for 3 whole periods out of fear. How I once skipped a lecture and flew to Shanghai just to see snow fall for the first time. He didn't say much, I said a lot. He listened, I spoke with all my heart. I didn't understand why I could open up so easily. Maybe it was his eyes, looking at me like I was something to be cherished. Without judgment, without labels, without conditions. After dinner, he walked me back to my dorm at Tsinghua. Just before I entered the gate, he suddenly called out, "Din Tin Huan." I turned around. "Yes?" He was silent for a few seconds. The autumn wind brushed through my hair, and it felt like time stood still between us. "If one day I tell you I like you, you won't run away, will you?" I froze. Not because I was surprised, but because maybe I had been waiting for those words for a long time. I didn't answer. I just smiled. That night, I couldn't sleep. That summer passed like a beautiful melody, quiet, pure, and unforgettable when winter came. Chen Kai-lin became a part of my rhythm. Never loud, never always present, but always there, at just the right moments. When I was stressed with deadlines, he brought my favorite sugar-free matcha.
When I was sick, he bought medicine, made me take it, and stayed beside me until I fell asleep. We never officially said we were in love. But his presence always made me feel loved. Until one day, in early September rain, he held my hand. No flowers. No music. Just the patter of rain on the rooftop and his hand trembling slightly. "Yuyan." I looked up. "I like you." I looked at him for a long time. Then nodded. "I know." From that moment, we were officially together. Quietly. Modestly. But filled with the kind of small, warm things that make life less cold. That year, he graduated. With top honors, he was selected for overseas training, a special program for young officers with potential in international economic crime prevention. I saw him off at Beijing Capital Airport. Amid the rushing crowd and the cold white lights, he hugged me tightly. "Just 3 years," he said, like he was trying to comfort me. "Wait for me." I smiled, holding his hand tightly. "Just don't die." He paused, then smiled that familiar smile. "For you, I'll live." I didn't cry that day. I thought, what's 3 years? But I didn't know, those would be the 3 years that turned my heart to stone. He left. And then, he vanished. No emails. No calls. Not a single message. As if he had disappeared from my world, as if he never existed. I waited. A month. Then 3. Then a year. I began to wonder, did something happen? Or, did he simply choose not to come back? No one answered. I slowly learned silence. Learned to live like before he came, quiet, lonely, and cruelly composed. I didn't know where he was. Nor did I know that my life was about to take a turn toward shimmering wealth. And the crimson stain hidden beneath the perfection of financial reports. 3 years passed, and I graduated from Tsinghua University with honors. My friends told me I should become a lecturer or apply for a master's degree abroad. But I turned all of it down. I chose a more pragmatic path, working as an investment analysis consultant for a private fund in Beijing. Not because I loved money, but because I needed to understand it. Understand how it worked, how it controlled the world. And, truth be told, a part of me had died since he disappeared. The rest of me only wanted to survive, and money was the one thing that made it easier. The company I worked for was a venture capital fund owned by an international conglomerate. On the surface, it was all legal. Beneath, not quite. I didn't discover that out of curiosity, but because the nature of my job forced me to scrutinize every line of data, every report, every seemingly meaningless transaction. And one day, I noticed an inconsistency. A set of shell companies created to launder money through investments in tech startups in Shenzhen, Shanghai, and abroad. I reported it to upper management. 3 days later, my boss was transferred, and I was promoted. In this world, sometimes the reward is getting pushed closer to the edge of the cliff. I started being followed. My phone made strange echoing sounds. My email passwords were constantly being reset. Once, 300 yuan mysteriously disappeared from my bank account, and just as mysteriously returned. They were warning me. But I didn't back down. I'm not brave. I've just lost too much to be afraid of losing more. I told myself that one spring night in Beijing, as I sat alone on the 29th floor of a high-rise office, looking out over a city glowing like an expensive music box turning in slow motion. Under the dim yellow desk lamp lay an investment contract worth tens of millions. What others might spend a lifetime striving for was now just a blinking number in a spreadsheet. I signed it. My hand didn't even tremble. That was the moment I officially became the youngest investment director at KINH Capital, a fund with foreign roots that operated mostly in the shadows. No one said it out loud, but everyone in the industry knew, this wasn't a clean place. And once you step in, there's no turning back. In the beginning, I worked like a machine. Data analysis, deal closing, equity negotiations, cash flow audits. I lived on financial statements, ate with risk probabilities, and slept with secrets. Some said I was ruthless. I didn't deny it. Because I knew, if I faltered, even for a second, the next to disappear from this industry could be me. And then, he appeared. I first met Jiang Lin at an extended internal meeting, when the executive board transferred him from the Singapore headquarters to Beijing to support the strategic investment team. Jiang Lin. A name that sounded refined, but when faced in person, carried an aura that made others instinctively wary. He was tall, with sharp features, a straight nose, and very still eyes. So still they made you wonder if he was human, or a psychological barometer measuring his prey. No one said much about his background. All we knew was that Jiang Lin was sent from above, and an essential arm of the system, an unspoken warning all investors understood: don't ask questions, just do your job if you don't want to be replaced. I didn't like people like that. But slowly, I realized. Jiang Lin wasn't what I expected. He didn't talk much, only when it mattered. Whenever we sat down to negotiate with tech CEOs or young startup founders, he was always the one to close the deal fastest. No raised voices, no threats, just a look and a few facts enough to put the other side at a disadvantage. Jiang Lin always knew when to stay silent, and when to offer me a hand to rise after a losing meeting. He never crossed the line. But never stepped too far away either. He was there, like a quiet shadow beside me. Not close. Not distant. Until one day, after a tense meeting on restructuring our investment portfolio in Shenzhen, I was about to leave the office when I discovered my car had been sabotaged. The tires were slashed, the electrical system tampered with. Before I could react, Jiang Lin appeared from nowhere. "Get in my car. Don't stay here." I turned to look at him, trying to stay calm. "Who do you think did this?" He didn't answer. He only said, "Smart people don't need to know who did it. They need to leave before something worse happens." I got into his car. Asked no more. He didn't play music. Didn't speak. We just sat in silence, driving through Beijing's neon-lit night. Until we stopped at a quiet tea house tucked in a lane near Xidan, he finally said, "I know you're smart, Ting Yuan. But being smart doesn't mean being safe." I looked at him, my eyes wavering for the first time. "So, you were sent to protect me?" "Yes," Jiang Lin looked directly at me. "Upper management wants someone to keep your pace. You're a key piece on the board." I chuckled, dryly. "I'm not a chess piece. I'm a player." "Then you need someone to walk with you even more. A player doesn't survive unless they keep the rhythm of the game." I said nothing. Inside me was only an empty space. I once had someone who walked with me. Someone who promised to hold my hand forever. But it's been 3 years, and my hand is still cold. Jiang Lin sat across from me, his face strangely calm. He didn't ask about the past. Didn't probe into the present. But those eyes that seemed to know too much, looked at me like I was an equation he'd already solved, just waiting to be laid out. Since that night, Jiang Lin worked closer with me. We gradually became the core team for most venture capital deals from Beijing to Guangzhou. I showed no emotion. But I knew he was slowly infiltrating my world. Gently, silently, never demanding, but never letting go. One time, I joked, "If I collapse one day, will you pull me up, or push me down faster?" Jiang Lin replied immediately, without hesitation, "If you want to live, I'll pull you up. If you want to die, I'll go with you." It wasn't a romantic answer. But I stayed silent for a long time. Because I wasn't sure if it was a promise or a warning. I'm not someone who easily trusts others. But Jiang Lin worked so methodically, so cautiously, that it was almost suspicious. I'm not sure why, but from the very first time we met, I had the strange sensation of being watched, scrutinized. Not in a creepy way, but as if I were being meticulously evaluated, every habit, every word, every furrow of my brow.
He never drinks coffee. Instead, he prefers plain espresso. Yet the first time I placed an unsweetened matcha on the meeting table, he glanced at it briefly and smiled gently. "You still keep your old habit, don't you?" I froze for a beat, not because of the words, but because of the chill that crept down my spine. I had never told him that. With Jiang Lin's discreet support, I gradually stabilized the operational system. Contract loopholes, cash flow errors, and even shady dealings with third-party intermediaries were swiftly and cleanly handled. He was competent and never hesitated to stand by me when it mattered. There were nights when we sat in the dark meeting room, the only light coming from the glow of our screens. Jiang Lin worked silently while I brewed another pot of hot, unsweetened matcha. "Don't you ever get tired?" he asked. "I do. But being tired doesn't permit you to give up." He chuckled softly. What if, one day, you were allowed to give up? I looked out through the glass. The city at night, its flickering lights like distress signals from dreams yet to come true. I didn't answer. I don't know when Jiang Lin started to change. Maybe it was when he pulled me away from a boring client dinner to get late-night porridge. Or when he stood in front of me during a heated contract dispute and snapped at the partner. She's the person I trust the most. If you have a problem, take it up with me. Trust. A word I hadn't dared to think about in a very long time. And then, on some evenings, when I glanced sideways, I'd catch him looking at me. Unhidden, unfeigned, real. I wasn't blind to it, but I still couldn't forget that cold gaze, the one from someone else, as he stepped into a black Jeep and disappeared into the airport that year. 3 years. Not a single word, not even a message, no explanation. Lately, strange things have been happening. Our internal systems have been repeatedly attacked by suspicious code. Jiang Lin always handled them swiftly, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was trying to send me a message I couldn't yet decipher. That night, I received an anonymous email. No subject, no sender. Just one line, someone's watching you. Be careful with Jiang Lin. I laughed, thinking I'd accidentally opened a crime novel draft. But I didn't delete it. I printed it out, folded it, and tucked it into my desk drawer. Later that same day, a package arrived. Inside was a small bullet-shaped keychain. On the back, engraved letters, KL. I stared at it for a long time. Chen Kai-lin used to carry an identical one back when he was a senior at the police academy. A part of me died the day he vanished. But now, it stirred a little, as if it were beating again quietly, but persistently. As if he was coming back. I can't remember exactly when I got used to waking up each morning to find a moss-green ceramic cup sitting at the edge of the table. Unsweetened matcha, bitter as hell, just like my life lately. Couldn't sleep? Jiang Lin asked when he found me on the top-floor balcony of the hotel our company had just acquired. The sea breeze carried the scent of salt and moisture into the air. I nodded slightly, still gripping the ceramic cup tightly. You still think about him, don't you? I gave a faint smile. It's nothing. He didn't say anything, just quietly sat down beside me. The distance between us was just enough to keep emotions from overflowing. Tinhuan, if you ever want to run away from it all, just say the word. I'll take you. I looked at him. Jiang Lin's eyes no longer held their usual lightness, just a quiet shade of gray. I'm not running. I'm just learning how to survive. For someone who's survived family collapse, built an entire system from scratch, and carried both responsibility and guilt on her shoulders, you've done more than survive. You've lived. I didn't need praise. I didn't need someone behind me claiming to understand. I just needed someone who had once stood beside me at the right time in the right place. And that person had disappeared 3 years ago. That afternoon, during an internal meeting with the legal and finance departments, I noticed a file bearing the stamp of the Criminal Investigation Department, sent under the form of an official document requesting a financial audit of a subsidiary.
I frowned slightly. Jiang Lin, do you know anything about this? I asked after the meeting ended, when it was just the two of us left in the room. He walked over and glanced at the file. I've already had it checked. It's just a routine inspection for companies with abnormal growth rates. Is that so? His answer seemed reasonable enough, but I couldn't shake my unease. The name in the red stamp on the upper right corner of the document Tran K.L shook me to my core. An initial. A name. A gust of wind dragging me 3 years into the past. The familiar ache returned, as if someone had ripped open the frozen seal on a memory I had long buried. I gripped my matcha tightly, trying to keep my voice steady. Do you know who signed this? Jiang Lin looked at me. He was usually good at reading people, but this time, he couldn't quite figure me out. Could be someone newly assigned to the department. They've been rotating staff lately. I think he trained abroad. I nodded, but inside, my thoughts were tangled like a web. 3 years of training. Return to the country. Economic crime investigator. For the first time, the pieces aligned like a treasure map. That night, I dreamt an old dream. I was standing at a crowded bus station, clutching Chen Kylin leather satchel. He stood there, wearing his intern uniform, holding tightly to my shoulders. Wait for me. Just 3 years. Can't you call? I can't. But I'll come back. The dream stopped at the moment he kissed my forehead. In that dream, I never asked how he would return. I just silently nodded like a fool. When I woke up, my pillow was soaked. They say dreams are just fragments of reality, spliced and scattered. But if those fragments carry his image, I'd gladly tear myself apart just to piece them back together. A week later, HR notified me, an internal security staff member had just been seconded from the city police department. He would be in charge of system risk assessment and data security for the company. Needs your direct approval. I didn't think much of it, just clicked approve after skimming through the resume. But that evening, when my secretary sent over the detailed profile for legal archiving, I paused for a long time at one name. Pham Hong Min. Not Chen Kylin. But under the nominating officer field, it was clearly stated, signed by Chen Kylin, head of the Economic Cyber Crime Investigation Unit. My hand trembled slightly. He had come back. The supermarket near my place wasn't big, but it was always quiet enough for me to leisurely pick out my usual items: oatmeal, eggs, and unsweetened matcha. I didn't like sweets. The bitterness kept me awake. Just like how I reminded myself every day, the ones who leave never come back. I was standing by the tea shelf, reaching for a new box of matcha, when someone called out, "Still going for unsweetened matcha?" I turned, startled. Not because the question was odd, but because the one who asked was Chen Kylin, in a simple black hoodie and a backward cap. He didn't look like an economic crimes investigator who had just returned from overseas, and even less like the man who once left me behind in the coldest winter. But those eyes unmistakable. Still the same steady gaze. Still watching me just like 3 years ago. "It's you?" I asked, my voice unsure whether it was surprise or sarcasm. He smiled, hands tucked into his coat pockets. "Yeah. It's me." In that moment, I realized my heart skipped a beat. But I didn't let it linger. I turned away, about to push the cart, but he stepped forward, took the handle, and moved alongside me as if 3 years of silence had never happened. "Still drinking this? Still having oatmeal and eggs for breakfast? You haven't changed." I clenched my fist. "You're the one who changed." He stopped, eyes holding mine for a long while. "You're right. I've changed. I'm more grown up. More cautious. And I know now, if I let you go again, I won't get another chance." I was about to reply when an elderly lady hurried past and bumped her cart into my leg. I staggered, almost falling, but a familiar arm caught me, pulling me into that solid chest. His breath brushed my ear. That familiar scent. So faint. Still the same mint fragrance from the past. He held me just tightly enough that I couldn't break away, but not so tightly that I couldn't breathe. "I'm sorry." His voice whispered. Not for the old lady's push, but for 3 years of silence. We walked home together. I lived on the 16th floor, a high-end lakeside apartment complex for finance professionals, just 15 minutes from the city center. He stepped into the elevator with me. I looked at him, a little surprised. "You live here too?" He nodded and held out a keycard. 1606. I froze. "My apartment 1605. I laughed, a bitter kind of laugh. That close, I want to be close, he said calmly. I didn't say anything. When we reached the floor, I stepped out first. He followed behind, carrying my grocery bags just like always. He never let me carry anything heavy. At my door, he handed me the bags. But he didn't leave right away. Can I take you to dinner tomorrow? I looked at him, searching for signs of a joke, but his eyes were deadly serious. Chen Ky Lin, dinner 1T undo 3 years you disappeared. He nodded. I know. But if you'll let me, I'll start again, little by little. His voice wasn't that of a fresh graduate anymore. It had depth, regret, determination. Before I could refuse, the door across from mine swung open. Zhang Lin. He wore a rolled-up shirt, holding a fresh pack of tea, and saw the two of us standing close. Hone, I just made some unsweetened matcha. Want to come over? I didn't get the chance to answer. Chen Ky Lin turned to face him first. The gentle smile from earlier vanished, replaced by an open wariness. Thanks, Zhang. But she's feeling a bit tired today. I'll help her rest. I froze. Zhang Lin chuckled softly, his eyes brushing over me, not jealous, but understanding. All right then. Rest well. The matcha's ready if you change your mind. As the door across closed, I turned, about to scold Chen Ky Lin, but he spoke first. Who is he to you? I raised an eyebrow. What's it to you? He didn't answer. Just scratched his cheek, an old habit whenever he struggled to express himself. I don't like how he looks at you. Like, he knows you too well. I laughed. He's a friend. A friend who lives across the hall, knows your favorite matcha, and cooks for you. I raised an eyebrow. Are you jealous? He stayed silent for 3 seconds. Then nodded. Yeah. He stepped closer, one hand resting on the doorframe beside me. Because I've already lost you once. This time. I don't want you looking at anyone but me. I stood still. His words weren't poetic. But they hit exactly where I was weakest. That night, I sat with a glass of unsweetened matcha, quietly looking across the hall. The lights in Zhang Lin's living room were off. But the kitchen light in 1606 was still on. On the balcony, a familiar figure leaned against the railing, facing my apartment. Chen Ky Lin. He didn't call. Didn't text. Just stood in silence, watching like he used to from the corner of the schoolyard. But this time, I wasn't the forgetful college girl without an umbrella, and he wasn't the clumsy intern anymore. We had both grown. The only question was it still in time tonight? I couldn't stop thinking about Chen Ky Lin. It felt strange, like something was silently returning within me, but at the same time, it was vague, not fully understandable. 3 years apart, I thought I had mastered my emotions, that I was ready for a new life, no longer the girl I once was. But his gaze, that smile, the gentle and determined words he spoke, they made it hard for me to break free. I stood by the window, looking across to the opposite apartment, where Chen Ky Lin stood, still the same familiar silhouette. The lights in apartment 1606 cast a warm glow, creating a small pool of light amidst the darkness of the apartment complex. This feeling. I couldn't deny that it confused me. He didn't call, didn't text, but the way he just quietly stood there, as if ready to protect me when needed, made me feel comforted. But then, Zhang Lin. The way he looked at me, the way he acted earlier, there was something about it that felt poignant, as though he didn't want to let go. I saw it clearly. But I couldn't speak it out loud, couldn't make my only close friend suffer. He was just a friend. As I thought of this, I heard the doorbell ring. I jumped, looking over. Through the glass, I saw the familiar figure standing outside the door. It was Chen Kylin. It wasn't an unexpected call, it was the kind of appearance I had known would happen. He stood there, holding a bag of tea, his gaze still calm, but not unfamiliar. When I opened the door, he gave a slight nod, but didn't speak. His mere presence warmed my heart. He stood still, not apologizing, but his gaze was enough for me to understand, he wasn't planning to leave. Here already, I asked, keeping my voice steady. Yeah, he nodded. I brought tea. I looked at him for a moment before stepping back into the house, letting him in. As he walked to the small bar in the living room and quietly poured tea for me, I felt an odd sense of shyness. Once again, it was matcha with no sugar. I didn't need to say anything, he remembered. I sat down, holding the cup of tea, but my gaze wandered, accidentally landing on the window. The opposite apartment was still lit. That feeling. I couldn't deny that I was thinking about Zhonglin or Chen Kylin noticed I was looking at the window, but he didn't say anything right away. He gently placed the teacup on the table, then silently observed me. I didn't understand why, in that moment, a strange feeling took over me. I looked back at him, not hiding the confusion in my eyes. "Isn't the apartment across from us Zhonglin's?" I asked. He looked at me, lips pressed together, then answered slowly, with some restraint in his voice, "Yes, it's Zhonglin's." I noticed that he didn't seem comfortable talking about him. I didn't say anything more, just took a quiet sip of the familiar bitter matcha, feeling it spread in my throat. After a while, he sat down, looking at me intently. His gaze was more serious this time. Not the casual look, not the dreamlike gaze of someone just meeting an old friend. This look felt like he was trying to understand a part of me he had never understood. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. I didn't answer right away. But my gaze unconsciously drifted back to the window again. "He's my friend," I said softly, trying to keep calm. He was silent. After a long pause, he spoke again, with a calm tone, as if trying to control his emotions. "Then why didn't you invite him in for tea?" I was taken aback. His gaze had become sharp. "He's my friend. That's all," I repeated, but inside, I felt a bit uneasy. He didn't respond. Just then, the doorbell rang again. Zhonglin. This time, he wasn't just holding tea, but a bag of homemade cookies as well. "Hone, aren't you going to open the door?" Zhonglin's voice called out. I could sense the concern in his voice. But at that moment, Chen Kylin had already stood up and walked toward the door before I could react. He opened the door and faced Zhonglin. "Zhonglin, no need to come in." "Hone's tired," Chen Kylin said, his voice calm but firm. Zhonglin hesitated for a moment, then nodded without saying anything further. He looked at me for a moment, his gaze tinged with a hint of regret, but then turned and walked away. The door closed. Once again, the apartment was left with only Chen Kylin and me. He didn't say anything, but I could sense a relief in him. He didn't speak it, but it seemed like something had been eased. He looked at me, not with coldness, but with genuine concern. I didn't know what to say. His words felt like some kind of promise. A promise that I couldn't stop thinking about. The weather had turned to early summer. The air in Beijing carried the scent of sunshine, and the fading fragrance of late-season lilies lingered in the streets. The dry wind blew through the long hallways on the 16th floor, giving me the feeling that time was shifting, as if my heart was no longer the same as before. Since that day, Chen Kylin stopped showing up at my door unexpectedly. He sent texts, checked in, appeared when I needed him, and disappeared when I needed peace. He was still him, but no longer the naive boy from our second year of college. 3 years later, he had learned to patiently wait for me, without complaints. One Saturday, he called and asked me to take a walk with him. No wine, no candles, no fancy restaurants, just an evening walk by the lake in a park. His hand gently held mine as we strolled. "Hon," he called softly, his gaze fixed on me. I looked up at him. "When you left, I didn't have a chance to say, the person I want to walk through life with is still you." I froze. A chill ran from my hand to his, but he held on tight. "I don't want to reclaim the past. I just ask for a chance in the present. If you agree, just one word, and I'll make sure you never fall into any abyss again." I didn't speak. Not because I was confused, but because my heart had never been so still. In that moment, I saw the 3 years of restless youth, the sleepless nights waiting for a message that never came, his smile in my memory, and the sight of him when he sent me off at the airport. I pulled my hand away and walked to a nearby white suh tree, then turned back. "Okay," I said. "Just one word." He stepped forward and pulled me into his arms, tight enough that I could hear his heartbeat. No noise, no fanfare. But I knew, my heart had just found a place to be safe. That evening, when I returned home, I saw Zhonglin waiting by the door. He still had the calm demeanor, though today he seemed a bit weary. In his hand was a paper bag, still filled with the green tea cookies I liked. "Are you free? Come sit on the balcony for a bit," he asked, his voice light. I nodded. We sat on the long balcony, keeping just enough distance so that we didn't touch. He took out 2 cans of cold matcha, opening one for me. I smiled lightly. "You really remember what I like? It's not easy to forget," Zhonglin replied. We fell into a quiet silence, the hum of the ventilation system from upstairs, and occasionally the distant sound of cars beneath the building. Then, he suddenly turned to me and spoke. "I once thought, if you came back after a few years, maybe everything would be different." I gripped the can in my hand, silently. He didn't say more, but I understood. Everything that needed to be said, he had already expressed in his own way, not with "I love you," but with a gentle "if," full of regret. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "I know. And you don't need to apologize." Zhonglin looked up at the night sky and smiled, his voice as light as the breeze. "I just want to see you happy. If it's with him, I'm at peace." I turned to him, resting my hand on his arm. There was no ambiguous affection, just a gesture of gratitude in the touch. "I'll always be your friend. Friend, and someone who'll stand behind you. If one day you're in trouble, look back. I'll still be there." I didn't answer, but my eyes welled with tears. He gently rubbed my head, like an older brother, before standing up and leaving. Under the soft yellow light of the hallway, his silhouette seemed longer, lonelier. I knew, from that moment on, my heart had a home. And I also knew, there was someone quietly turning away, to protect me in the most mature and noble way. But what I didn't know was, when he returned to his apartment, Zhonglin powered up his high-end encryption computer, bringing up a large schematic on the screen, a large-scale economic crime case that was just beginning to take shape. On the top left corner of the diagram, the name Huang Min Group appeared, marked in red. He stared at it, his eyes colder than ever. If KINH can't protect you all the way, then I'll be the one to clean up the mess. I gradually got used to the routine of opening my door every morning and finding Chen KINH standing across from me, sleeves rolled up, holding a cup of unsweetened matcha coffee, his eyes curving in a smile. He was still as cold as before, but with the world, except for me. That morning, he knocked on my door, handing me a small wooden lunch box with an exquisite clasp. I made it myself. There's chili in it, but it's not too spicy. I opened the box, and inside was a heart-shaped omelette, a little crooked. The eggs weren't perfectly fried, but it was thoughtful and heartwarming. He stood there, arms crossed, trying to hide his nervousness with his casual tone. I just didn't want you eating instant noodles in the morning. I accepted it. Thanks. You should also eat something proper for breakfast. Your face looks a bit hollow lately. He squinted, smiling lightly. Oh, you care about my face? Just a casual observation. We both laughed. Zhonglin still visited often. His place was next to KINH's, and he always had a good reason to come over. Once, I left important documents at home, and Zhonglin immediately rode over to hand them to me. Tin Hon, do you know how many times you've gasped today? He asked. I froze, looking up at Zhonglin, who was leaning against the door, his gaze playful. Probably as many times as I've looked at you, he added. I chuckled. Still watching flirting videos online, just then, KINH came home, a bag of cherry tomatoes in hand. He stopped, frowned, and quickly glanced at Zhonglin, his look as if he'd just caught a thief sneaking over the wall. KINH didn't say anything, just walked into the kitchen. But a little while later, I saw him. After washing the tomatoes, he started washing my glass too, in a very unnecessary but incredibly sweet gesture. That evening, when I went up to the rooftop to watch the moon, he followed me. The wind was strong, and the city was glowing with lights. Zhonglin comes to your place quite often, he said, his voice light, almost like a question. I lifted my gaze, looking at his face under the soft yellow light. For a moment, I saw a hint of unease in his eyes, quickly masked by his usual coldness. I leaned on the railing and gently replied, he's just a friend. Always has been. KINH stayed silent for a moment, then nodded. I know. But sometimes. I smiled, and he didn't say anything further. He silently moved closer, our shoulders almost touching. The next weekend, I was kidnapped to a small gathering with KINH's university friends. There, I met Dokkan, his close teammate, now a tech crime investigator, and Linan Dokkan's girlfriend, a resident doctor in psychiatry. Linan pulled me aside and whispered, KINH smiles a lot. What are you doing to make him like that? Before, he barely paid attention to any of us. I just smiled, unsure how to explain to her that sometimes, love is simple when someone looks at you like you're the whole world, even if you're just eating vegetables. That evening, when I returned from the party, I sat in my room, holding a cup of unsweetened matcha. The scent of the tea lingered, its bitterness lightly tingling on my tongue. Outside, I heard a knock on the door. It was KINH. Aren't you asleep? He asked. I shook my head. He hesitated for a moment before holding out a small wooden music box to me. For you. When you moved, you dropped it. I fixed it. I opened it. The sound of a piano piece filled the room. It was the same piece I used to play for him. My chest tightened. KINH spoke softly, as if making a promise, this time I won't disappear. I lowered my head. A warm wave spread through my chest, gentle and tender. I didn't say anything, just quietly reached out to hold his hand, which was hanging loosely by his side. His fingers were cold, but mine were warm. He sighed softly and then gently said, "Next time, don't let Zhonglin touch your hand." I laughed softly, replying, "Are you jealous? Not jealous, just heartbroken." That was all. I didn't need any more declarations of love. Because I knew, his heart had never changed its direction. Since Chen Kylin and I established our relationship, everything seemed to be gentler. He was still the same silent, few words, but every word he said made my heart melt. Once, he told me, "It's not that you can't love again, it's that you're waiting for the right person to love again." I looked up at him, and for the first time, I thought maybe the years of waiting had finally made sense. But just as everything seemed to be at peace, the darkness began to creep in. Recently, Zhonglin had been visiting less often. It wasn't because he was angry, nor was it because he was avoiding me. He still joked and cared, but it was less. I could sense every small detail. He no longer spoke about Kylin as a neighbor but as a rival. One night, I unexpectedly caught Zhonglin standing in the basement of the building, holding his phone, his voice low and hoarse, "Accelerate the process. The plan, temporarily called cover, has entered the testing phase. Everything must be clean. Don't let it touch her." I froze behind the glass, my palms clenched tightly. Don't let it touch her. Was he talking about me? A week later, Kylin was assigned to a special economic task force to handle a high-tech money laundering case delegated by the ministry. I didn't know why he was chosen so quickly, until I heard Dokkan talk about it during a drink with Linen. "This case is complicated. We've just traced a chain of shell companies using AI to simulate financial reports in a very sophisticated way. The person behind it is very skilled. They've left no clear traces." I tilted my head, asking, "Any specific suspects?" Khan took a sip of beer, his eyes thoughtful. "There's one. But the scary thing is, he gets very close to people who can investigate. It's almost like he wants to control the direction of the investigation." I shuddered slightly. Linen looked at me and smiled reassuringly, as if trying to ease my mind. "Don't scare Hone. She has a weak heart. Besides, this case may not involve anyone close to you." I just smiled lightly, but inside, my heart was in turmoil. That evening, I made myself a cup of unsweetened matcha and sat alone on the balcony. I felt an odd sense of unease. My phone buzzed with a message from Zhonglin. "Are you okay?" I hesitated for a moment before replying, "I'm fine." "What about you?" He didn't reply immediately. After a while, just as I was almost falling asleep, the final message came through. "There are a few things I need to handle. But if anything makes you uneasy, stay away from it." The words felt like a warning, but also the internal struggle of someone who couldn't turn back. The next day, Kylin told me he had to go on an urgent business trip, probably for a week. But I suspected that this trip was not simple. I went into his room and left a small note inside the matcha tea box. "Don't try to handle it alone. If anything happens, let me know." He called me at midnight. His voice was hoarse. "I've read it. Thank you. If things are as I suspect, then this time, I might have to bet everything." I gripped the phone tightly. "I'll wait." In another part of the city, Zhonglin sat in a secret meeting room. In front of him was a financial simulation screen, showing sophisticated money laundering models. One of his subordinates asked, "So, should we begin, boss? Zhonglin didn't he answer immediately. He looked up at the night outside the window. Then he nodded, his voice light, start phase 1. I have an unbreakable rule in life: once you step into the adult world, never rely solely on emotions. Because emotions can lead you astray, but logic is what saves your life. But lately, my logic has been pierced by emotions. Especially every morning, when I open the door of my apartment and see KINH standing there, holding a cup of unsweetened matcha, his gaze warm like autumn in Beijing. You're up already? I made it. It's not sweet, he says, handing me the cup like it's a habit that's been programmed into him. I take it, smile lightly. Both he and I are living in a temporary bubble of age happiness. We know it's fragile, but we willingly step inside. The thing is, the warmer it gets, the more unsettled I feel. Something is shifting behind me silently and systematically. Like an undercurrent tightening around my ankles, waiting for the right moment to pull both me and my life under. I'm not the type to be paranoid, but there have been small signs lately that make it impossible not to think. Zhonglin, he's changing. He's no longer the man quietly handling all the tasks behind me. Now, in every meeting, he speaks more, and sometimes his gaze drifts to me with an assessing look, no longer just the warmth of a friend. And Dokon, the boy I thought only knew how to joke around, suddenly sent me a file. He didn't say much, just casually, take a look at this. Don't ask me how I got it. But if you can, you should talk to Chen KINH. I opened it. It was a money flow chart, winding like a maze, with a series of newly established subsidiary companies in the past 3 months. Auditor's signature, Zhonglin. I didn't tell anyone. I needed more time. And I needed to confirm it with Linan. Lin brother has been looking at me closely lately, Linan said when we were sitting in the break room after a meeting. Is it because I've been texting KINH? I blurted out, then laughed at myself for sounding like a jealous kid. Linan raised an eyebrow. Are you jealous? No. But if he's jealous of you, I'd be a little happy. We laughed, but both of us knew we were joking about something really serious. I had believed Zhonglin would always be a good older brother, but clearly, KINH's return was causing him to lose control. Love affairs are never just between two people. That evening, KINH didn't come home with me. He sent a brief message, I have work, will be home late. I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned on the sofa, still holding the cold matcha cup. Around 3 in the morning, I went out into the hallway to get some fresh air. Just then, the door of the apartment across from mine opened. KINH stepped out, holding a stack of documents, his face set in a serious expression. I hid in the corner, my heart racing. He was investigating someone. Part of me hoped it wasn't Zhonglin. The other part whispered, if it's him, do I have the courage to accept it? The next morning, Zhonglin invited me to lunch. No prior notice. No reservation at a fancy restaurant. Just a small hand-pulled noodle shop in a narrow alley, a place I once brought KINH to when we were students. Ch Tin Hon, Zhonglin said, his voice light as if nothing was unusual. If you find out someone has been deceiving you, but it's to protect you, what would you do? I looked up at him. Those eyes, once a place where I found safety, now made me feel uneasy. Are you asking because you're about to do that to someone? I asked. He smiled. A smile that didn't reach his eyes. No, I just think, one day, I won't be able to hide it from you anymore. I put down my chopsticks. Stood up. The question still lingered in my mind like a bad premonition, who is hiding something from me and why? That evening, when I returned home, KINH was waiting by the door. He leaned against the wall, his expression tired, but still showing that familiar, gentle smile. "You're home. I need to talk to you." I nodded. "I need to talk to you too." We both walked inside. The door closed behind us. A silence tightened the space. We were about to start unraveling the knots. But I knew, every truth revealed wouldn't just be the truth. Sometimes, the truth is a sharp knife. It doesn't kill you immediately. But it's enough to make your heart bleed. The space between us was filled with silence. KINH poured wine. I prepared matcha. One bitter, one sweet. We were like two worlds standing close to each other, yet always containing the risk of collision. "I know you're doubting," he started, his gaze unwavering, "and you have every right to. I don't blame you." I looked at him, neither nodding nor objecting, waiting for him to continue. "You once asked me where I worked after graduation. I said in the tech industry, digital investigation. That's true. But I never told you that, during that time, I worked undercover for the economic crime department." I tightened my grip on the cup. My heart tightened. Half of me wanted to believe him, half of me wanted to argue, "Why tell me now? I couldn't tell you. Not because I don't trust you, but because if you knew, you'd be in danger. And even now, you are." His gaze was no longer that of the boy who used to text me good night every night. It was that of a police officer, a man bearing a responsibility greater than love. I stood up and walked out onto the balcony. The night wind blew through my hair, cold and clear, like reality itself. "Did you ever think, if you hadn't come back, would things have been easier?" I asked, not looking back. "Yes. And every time I thought that, I chose to come back." I turned to look at him. For the first time in all these years, I saw him not hiding anything. The truth is, KINH had been tracking a transnational money laundering and investment fraud ring for over 2 years. One of the key links in the ring was Khan, who coincidentally had business dealings with the law firm I used to collaborate with. And there was an underground financial channel under investigation, linked to Lin, the friend I trusted the most. I was stunned, but didn't cry. I simply fell silent, as if all the noise in my head had been turned off. "I'm not sure if Lin is directly involved. But I'm certain, you're caught in the middle." I looked into his eyes, trying to regain my composure. "If you continue the investigation, could you arrest Lin?" He didn't answer immediately. Then he nodded. Very gently. "If I have enough evidence." My heart shattered into 100 pieces, not because of betrayal, but because for the first time, I understood that loving someone doesn't necessarily mean choosing them. I stepped forward, looked him straight in the eye, and said something I hadn't expected to say so soon. "If I'm in the middle, then let me be the one to break this deadlock." He squeezed my hand. His face, for the first time, was no longer cold like a police officer, but gentle like KINH of the past. "I don't need you to do anything. Just, trust me." Once more. I nodded lightly. In that moment, I knew, I couldn't turn back. I was no longer just in KINH of 20 years old. And if anyone was going to walk through this battle with me, it wouldn't just be because of love. It would be because we had chosen to stay together, even in the hardest moments. I never thought that day would begin with a fraudulent financial report. When Khan placed the coffee cup on the table, his gaze lingered on me for about a second. But in that moment, I saw something in his eyes, an uncertainty, perhaps even a hint of guilt. "Your signature is here," he said, handing me a stack of documents. I flipped through them. The numbers, which seemed familiar, suddenly felt strange. There was a missing expense. A trace was erased. A figure was altered. Not much. Just enough for an untrained eye to miss. But I studied economics. And I had once sworn that no balance sheet would pass through my hands without me understanding its essence. "What's this?" I asked, my voice cold and dry. Dokon didn't he look at me right away. "What do you mean?" I placed the report back on the table and stared at him for a long moment. I was no longer the girl from Tonhoa who only knew how to smile gently and drink unsweetened matcha to stay awake. I was a businesswoman, no matter how difficult the path to get here had been. "Con, I don't want to repeat myself." Just then, Linen walked in, holding a paper bag. It seemed she didn't understand what was happening, but she was perceptive enough to stand beside me and gently place her hand on my shoulder. "What's going on, Tin Hon?" I didn't answer. Because I knew that if I spoke then, it wouldn't be words coming out, it might be the scream of disappointment. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment. The apartment was at the end of the hallway, and through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the lights across the way, the apartment of Chen Ky Lin. He came home late. I watched his silhouette pass by the window, black shirt, tall frame, every movement neat and careful, just like everything I had once loved. No, not once loved. I still loved him. I opened my phone. No messages from him. But I wasn't worried. My intuition told me that he was watching. Waiting for me to take another step. Waiting for me to speak. Waiting for me to need him. The phone lit up. A message from Zhang Lin. I knew something was going on. But I didn't want to interfere. "Just so you know, I'm still here." I stared at the message for a long time. Then turned off my phone. Zhang Lin, still as gentle as ever. Still as warm as the first time he sheltered me with an umbrella under the heavy rain before the seminar. But there was one thing that he knew and had never forced me to forget, that in my heart, there was always someone else. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the door. I walked out. It was him, Chen Ky, linear black shirt, jeans, and eyes that seemed to pull me back to those old years. He held up a bag of bread and a bottle of soy milk. "Do you remember when you said you wanted to eat bread on Tonhoa Street late at night? They don't have it here, but I found the closest shop to it." I pursed my lips and nodded slightly. "Are you coming in?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. He just looked at me for a moment, then smiled and tilted his head like before. "Unless you kick me out halfway." We sat on the floor, eating under the soft yellow kitchen light. I drank the soy milk, while he flipped through several technical reports of his, occasionally asking me a few questions. A silence. Then he spoke, very softly, "Hone. I feel like something's off in your company." I froze. I didn't ask, "What do you mean?" or pretend not to understand. I just sighed and set the cup down. "You're right. But you don't know how wrong it is yet." He wasn't surprised. He placed his hand on my knee. "If you fall, I'll still be the one to pull you back." I laughed. "Aren't you afraid of being dragged down too? I followed you through the years at Tonhoa." His voice was lower now. "You think only one darkness can scare me?" I lowered my head. Without thinking, my hand grasped his. That night, no one left. We just sat together, like two lost souls in the battlefield, finding a peaceful corner amidst the storm that was waiting on the horizon. And I knew that battlefield was drawing closer. I still remember that day was a Friday, and it had been raining since early morning. Spring in Beijing wasn't exactly cold, but the dampness and gloom had a way of making people contemplative. I sat in my office, a stack of project files waiting to be signed in front of me, but my eyes kept drifting toward the window. The apartment across the way had its lights on early. Zhonglin wasn't going out today. He said he wanted to try making Japanese matcha souffle, something I'd once mentioned in passing. I wasn't in the mood for sweets, but he still made it. Sugar-free matcha just the way I liked it. He always remembered the smallest details. But something had started to feel off track. Lately, Chen Kylin had been coming home late. He didn't say much, only quietly looked at me whenever we happened to cross paths in the hallway or the elevator. His gaze was still just as deep, but there was something different in it. He was no longer the naive university student I once knew. He was a man now, hiding something heavy, something dark. I knew something was going on. With each passing day, I was more certain of it. He always checked his phone when he thought I wasn't looking, his face completely unreadable during short, tense calls. Once, I overheard just one sentence, "Zhonglin, he's not clean." I froze, standing behind the door. When did I start having doubts? Maybe it was when Zhonglin said he was at the office, but his location in our friends group chat showed he was a few kilometers away. Or when I found a stack of documents about foreign investment funds on his desk, papers that had nothing to do with his current job. I didn't say anything. I was afraid of the truth. Afraid that if I asked, the answer would shatter everything I believed in. One evening, I came home late from work. The rain was pouring in sheets. As I neared my door, I saw a figure standing there, tall, slender, soaked shirt clinging to him, arms full of documents. It was Kylin. "You're home," he said, his voice hoarse. "Why are you standing out in the rain? I was waiting for you." He looked at me, eyes slightly red. "We need to talk." I opened the door. The scent of matcha from Zhonglin's kitchen still lingered in the hallway. I saw Kylin furrow his brows slightly, then let out a sigh. We sat in the living room. "You've found something, haven't you?" I asked bluntly. He was silent for a few seconds, then nodded. "I don't have complete proof yet. But Zhonglin is using shell investment funds to launder money likely tied to a transnational organization." I was stunned. That can't be. He's always been by my side, helping me through my hardest times. That's exactly why I didn't want you to be the last one to find out. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying every memory, every cup of matcha, every time he held me when I broke down. But then I remembered the way Zhonglin avoided questions. The way he smiled just a little too perfectly. I started to feel afraid. And I felt a sharp pain when I realized that maybe this time, Kylin was the one telling the truth. The next morning, Zhonglin knocked on my door. In his hand was a box of freshly made matcha pastries. "Have you had breakfast?" he asked. Box smiled lightly. "Thanks. But I've got to head out early today." His eyes darkened slightly, but he said nothing. Just looked at me for a long moment before nodding gently. I closed the door. I never thought there would come a day when I'd be afraid of Zhonglin's gaze. All I could think of at that moment was this: if Kylin was right, then everything I was living was just a carefully crafted facade built by a man I once called brother. And if Zhonglin truly was the one pulling the strings, then I couldn't keep pretending not to know. I sat alone in the corner of the coffee shop on the ground floor of the apartment building, my cup of unsweetened matcha gone cold. It was still raining. At that moment, Beijing felt like a box full of unsaid things, placed squarely on my chest. I had just come back from the police station. Not as a suspect. Not even as a witness. Just as someone who had voluntarily requested a copy of the internal report on the money laundering investigation involving investment funds. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was reaching into the protective shell Zhonglin had built around me for the past 2 years. The report was less than 10 pages long, but some parts sent chills down my spine. Zhong El used 2 legal entities in Singapore and the Cayman Islands to pool capital via investment channels into a newly established tech company in China. The money flow was then legitimized through share transfers, internal advances, and asset revaluation. The tech company mentioned was the one I held a 10% stake in, listed under my name as a co-founder. No one needed to tell me anything. I understood that KY-Lin's silence had been his way of protecting me. That evening, as I entered the elevator, just before the doors could close, a hand reached in to hold them open. It was Zhonglin. He looked the same: white shirt, damp hair from the rain, eyes misted like always. "Have you eaten yet?" he asked. I shook my head. "Not yet." He smiled and pulled a small box from his pocket. "Matcha souffle, upgraded version. I used almond cream this time." I took it, my hand slightly trembling. "Thank you." The elevator doors closed. Neither of us said anything else. Only the soft strains of classical music filled the silence. But my heart no longer moved with its rhythm. Everything had changed. That night, I opened my laptop and created a new note. The first line I typed was, "If this is all true, then when did he start lying to me?" I remembered the first time we met at a financial seminar in Shanghai. He was in the audience, the only man who smiled when I openly challenged the outdated investment model the speaker was defending. At the time, I thought he was frank, sharp, and someone who understood me. Now, I wasn't so sure. KY-Lin arranged to meet me that weekend. He chose a small diner near the police station, clearly not a coincidence. When I walked in, he was already waiting. The aroma of hot food couldn't mask the tension of the conversation ahead. "I have new evidence," he began. I turned my face away. Inside me, 2 sides were tearing apart, one clinging to the beautiful memories I had with Zhonglin, and the other wanting to rip off the illusion I'd been living in for far too long. I left the diner as night fell. Walking through the hallway of my floor, I saw Zhonglin sitting outside his door, a box of souffle next to him, untouched. He looked up at me. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said. "Just tired." He said nothing for a while, then quietly added, "One day, if you ever want to ask anything, I'll answer. But only when you want the truth, not forgiveness." I stood there. I didn't nod or shake my head. I just sighed softly. "Can you still be a friend to me?" I asked. He gave a bitter laugh. "If you still need a friend, I'll be there. I don't know where the future will take me. But perhaps, the path ahead won't be paved with rose petals or unsweetened matcha anymore. It'll be a war between what's real and what's not." I didn't choose to turn away. If someone has to bear this, then I'll bear it with the same shoulders that once trusted you. I used to think, if one day I had to face the law, the reason would be me, no one else. But life was never fair. Sometimes, a single handshake is enough to be evidence. And trusting the wrong person is enough to make you an accomplice. That night, when Chen KY-Lin knocked on my door, his eyes had changed. No longer the unconditional gentleness of a lover, but the guarded gaze of a police officer trying not to fall apart. I stood still at the door. I didn't invite him in, but I didn't avoid him either. "It's time," Isn't it? He nodded. Slowly. As if each nod dragged both of us deeper underwater. The investigation just concluded. You're listed as one of 3 co-owners of the shell company in Shenzhen. Your name appeared in the second money transfer trail. I didn't ask who the third person was. I knew. One was Zhonglin. One was me. And the last was the alias of someone who had died 3 years ago, a perfect front for money laundering. I poured us water. My hands didn't tremble. There was nothing left to tremble for. You could deny it, he said, voice soft like early autumn wind. You could say you didn't know. That you signed because you trusted someone. That it was an unconscious delegation. No one can convict you unless you convict yourself. I smiled faintly. Signing without reading means I'm stupid. Signing with full awareness means I'm an accomplice. I want to use stupidity as a shield, KY. There was a long moment of silence between us. At last, he looked at me, eyes red. Aren't you scared? I shook my head. I am. But not of being arrested. I'm scared that if I run, Omion else will take the fall for me. I know what you're planning. Don't. He froze. I saw the storm in his eyes, the struggle between duty and love, reason and faith. We have 3 days, he said quietly. I blinked. 3 days until the prosecutor reviews the investigation. After that, they'll decide whether to indict you. Until then, you're still free. Do you want to do anything? I looked at him. For the first time, he wasn't a cop. Not the cold KY who once left me without a word. He was just a man gathering every ounce of courage to cling to our last 3 days. I nodded. I want to live like no one ever made a mistake. Those 3 days, we didn't talk about Zhonglin or didn't talk about the charges. Didn't talk about tomorrow. We just lived in the present. He took me to the art museum I used to love in Nanshan. We walked under the sunset, hand in hand, like the college kids we once were at Tsinghua. That night, he cooked. I watched. The little kitchen was so warm I didn't dare step out. We talked about my thesis. About how he secretly put my name on the scholarship list because he knew I'd never nominate myself. When did you fall in love with me? I asked while washing dishes. Maybe when you told the professor that markets were never fair, and the better ones only win if someone dares to play by their rules. I laughed. And now I'm about to be judged for playing by someone else's rules. He didn't answer. Just held me tighter from behind. The last night. We lay in bed, sleepless. I said, if I'm arrested tomorrow, don't wait for me. He chuckled, lightly flicked my forehead. There's no law that says I can't. There is. I say so. He looked at me. Longer than usual. Then whispered, then promise me when you get out, come back to me. 3 days passed like a blink. But they were long enough to remind me I can love again, even after dying inside. Some people spend a lifetime holding on to another, forgetting they themselves are slipping away. That night, when I received a message from Zhonglin, I knew he knew everything. No more hiding. No more masks of friendship, or the gentle little brother who always watched from afar. The message was just one line, Tin Hon, do you believe in rebirth? I didn't reply. I just got up, put on my coat, and walked across to the apartment he had lived in silently all these years. The door was unlocked. A warm yellow light covered a room I never thought existed, a workspace filled with money trail diagrams, lists of shell companies, photos of me, of KY. And in the center, a map of escape routes. I stood there. My heart sank into a bottomless pit. Zhonglin stepped out from behind the door. He wasn't surprised to see me. Just smiled like the first time he called me sis back in school. You came. I didn't nod. Didn't shake my head. You knew they'd arrest me. He nodded. I did. But I wouldn't let them. He stepped closer, handed me 2 passports, one with my name, one under his alias. Plane tickets. A withdrawal plan via anonymous e-wallets. Every step calculated like he hadn't planned an escape, but had always been ready. You're crazy. I've never been sane. At least not when it comes to you. In that moment, I understood his feelings were real. But the price of protecting them had gone beyond the bounds of the law. I stood between 2 paths, follow him, or betray him. I chose a third. Silently, I picked up my phone and tapped the signal and emergency code ID once set up with KINH. A minute later, the surveillance system was overridden remotely. Zhonglin realized it when he saw my eyes full of forgiveness. Not because he deserved it, but because I couldn't hate someone who gave everything to protect me. He didn't get angry. Just sighed. A sigh that sounded like the collapse of all hope. I always knew, you'd choose what's right. You always do, Tin Hon. The sirens wailed in the distance. He looked out the window. Maybe this is the only way I'll ever stop hurting you. I ran to him, grabbing his hand. Surrender. Let this end here. But Zhonglin, the smartest man I'd ever known, didn't choose that path. When the police stormed in, amidst the chaos, he pulled a knife. Not to attack, but to end it all. Blood spread across the floor. His eyes dimmed as I held him, sobbing. I'm sorry. I repeated it like a desperate prayer. Zhonglin just smiled, blood at the corner of his lips. It's not your fault. I never blamed you. And then, he closed his eyes. Forever. 3 days later, I turned myself in. I confessed everything from the beginning, the suspicions I had but lacked the courage to face, to the last thing I did. I didn't run. I didn't beg. But they reviewed the case. I received a suspended sentence for my full cooperation, my efforts to prevent Zhonglin's escape, and for stopping greater harm. Justice is not a double-edged sword. It's a mirror. And everyone must see themselves in it clear, down to the last flaw. That night, I came home. KINH held me in silence. We didn't speak of the future. We didn't promise to make it through. We just sat together. Because this time I chose the truth. And he chose to stay. Zhonglin's perspective. A sleepless night. I used to think I was the one setting the board, the one controlling every move. But it turns out, just one person, the right person, can appear and bring the whole game to ruin. And I, once the master of the game, became the one broken by it. They called me a financial genius. The man in control. The one who never made a wrong move. No one knew how many sleepless nights I spent in fear, under pressure, betrayed, thrown into the darkest pits where there were only 2 choices, rise up or be devoured. My family shattered when I was 10. My mother died in a loan shark deal. My father vanished, leaving behind nothing but a pile of debt and a curse, want to live step on others to get there. I believed it. And I lived. From a shoeshine boy at the train station, I climbed my way to the top of a money laundering empire. I ran shell companies, manipulated cross-border capital flows under the guise of investment consulting. I didn't need affection. Didn't need anyone. I just needed to survive. Until I met her. Tin Hon. At first, I approached her like any other link in the chain. Everything about her had a plan, her academic background, her attitude, her personality, even her habit of drinking unsweetened matcha. I got close wearing the perfect mask of a gentle younger brother, attentive, respectful, and distant just enough. The plan was simple: use her as a pawn. When things blew up, she would be the accountant responsible for wire transfers. The easiest scapegoat. No one would suspect a thing. But she wasn't what I expected. She wasn't naive but still believed in kindness. She was strong enough to stand tall but still gentle when she looked into someone's eyes. She drank unsweetened matcha but her heart was sweeter than anything I'd ever touched. And at some point, I was no longer the one in control. I saw the way she looked at Chen Kylin. It wasn't just admiration or longing. It was history. Youth. A bond I, no matter how rich or powerful, could never break into. So I chose silence. Because I knew as long as she kept smiling, even if I stepped back, I had still won. I changed the plan. I removed her name from all offshore accounts, obscured data trails, created a decoy culprit in case anything went wrong. I prepared an escape route, one without her. I wanted her clean, even if I rotted. But it was too late. Kylin wasn't a fool. He smelled the trail. And she was always too smart not to sense something was off about me. I saw her eyes the day she walked into that room, walls covered in maps, transaction logs, escape routes. Her eyes didn't show anger. They didn't even show shock. They showed forgiveness. And that was what destroyed me. I knew she had informed the police. I also knew I had one last chance to run. But if I ran, she'd have to face trial. If I resisted, she'd get dragged in. If I stayed silent, she'd still be forced to bear the consequences for me. And I couldn't let that happen. I didn't want her to bear the blame. Didn't want her to suffer because of me anymore. Didn't want the first love I ever knew to become a stain on her life. So I chose the ending. I drew a knife not to harm the cops. Not to hurt anyone. I just wanted it to end, before she had to pay any more for my existence. I hoped death would wipe everything clean. I left a code in the hard drive, all crime data, all evidence, all the money flows, and in it, a clear account of how I changed the plan for her, and how she refused to be involved. I knew, if used right, it would save her. As I closed my eyes, I didn't pray. I didn't regret. I wished only for one thing, that for the rest of her life, she would live, would smile as if she had never known someone named Zhonglin. Chen Kylin, I am a police officer, but first, I am the man who loves you. There were moments in life when I asked myself, if you were truly guilty, what would I do? Arrest you as a police officer or save you as a man? At first, I only saw Zhonglin as a rival in love. A man too close to Tinhyun, too gentle, too perfectly timed when I couldn't be by her side. I didn't like Zhonglin. But within the boundaries of a lover, I restrained myself. I thought, if he truly loved her, I would fight with my sincerity. I didn't expect he would be the one I'd have to hunt. When I was assigned to investigate a transnational money laundering ring, I never imagined it would involve her. Until the name Din Tinhyun appeared in the database of suspicious financial flows, listed as the intermediary account manager for a so-called foreign investment consulting company. The company name, one of Zhonglin's shell corporations. It felt like someone had punched me in the chest. Part of me wanted to deny it. I thought it must be a mistake. But I'm a police officer. I can't be blind. I had to investigate. Follow the trail. Find out exactly what she did, how she was involved, and whether she knew anything at all. I traced the money flow. Layer by layer, I peeled back the offshore network and found emails sent from KINH's device related to fund transfers. Financial reports typed by her own hand. Intermediary accounts under her name digitally signed. Everything was flawless, like it had been staged. I was torn. Logic told me, she's guilty. But my heart screamed, no. She doesn't know. She can't have done this. I stayed up night after night, analyzing data lines, transaction charts. Every time I wanted to give up, I remembered her eyes that could never belong to a liar. I knew Zhonglin wasn't simple. From the first time we met, when he took Tinhyun to dinner, that faint smile, calm eyes, steady voice, too polite, too composed. Like someone in control of everything. He left no trace. No cash. No original signatures. All transactions passed indirectly through proxies. His tech company was a front, the real operation was the stream of dark money running through anonymous accounts. I couldn't arrest him. I couldn't accuse him without proof. I had to make him slip up. Won the first trap, a 2 million misdirection transfer. I set up a fake transaction moving 2 million from an overseas entity to an account under Hung Fat Consulting, one of the intermediaries linked to Zhonglin. The money landed, but I inserted a bug that made it impossible to withdraw. Then I waited. 3 hours later, Zhonglin called the company's chief accountant using a private device I debugged 3 weeks prior. What's going on with the funds from Cayman? Report now. The key's corrupted, the system flagged the origin as inconsistent. Check all IPs today. Who interfered from outside? He was suspicious. But not panicked. I knew he was tracing me back, ready to reverse the trap. 2. The face-off, psychological warfare. I invited Zhonglin for a drink under the pretense of celebrating his tech firm's new license. He didn't refuse. Came on time. Brought the brand of liquor I liked. Like he could read my mind. I casually said, Hone's been tired lately. She's not used to messy investment firms. She's smart. Sensible. Just not ready for a bigger game. What if she's caught up in money laundering? I mean, tricked into it. He paused very briefly, but I saw the flicker in his eyes go out. If it were me, I wouldn't let the one I love get involved in that. 3. The next move, planting a mole in his IT team. I placed an agent in Zhonglin's tech department posing as a cybersecurity consultant. A specialist in decrypting and reconstructing shadow fund flows. 3 days later, Zhonglin discovered him. The agent was reassigned, phone disabled. I lost a soldier. But I retrieved the map of his main server system encrypted with a 6-tier honeycomb algorithm. I only needed the key. For the final blow, leading Zhonglin into the dead zone, I faked a misdirection, fed intel that police were focused on a Hong Kong lead. Leaked the info through a trusted associate of his and he took the bait. He transferred all his data to a new cloud server right when I planted a tracker on his intermediary machine. I found the real data vault. Not just flow charts. But the full plan, forged files under Tinhyun's name, faked digital signatures, planting her in fund transfers. And, something else. He had altered everything after 3 months of knowing her. The original plan was to use her as a scapegoat if caught. But he changed it, reduced her role, shifted blame elsewhere. I understood then. Zhonglin had fallen in love. And he chose to destroy himself to keep her clean. I took everything back. But I didn't arrest him. I waited until he chose to end it himself. 3 days before the verdict, I received an anonymous email. No subject. No sender. Just one attachment, the truth only for TKL. I opened it. It was Zhonglin's final voice recording. 5. And finally, his warning. 3 hours after Zhonglin's death, I got another anonymous email. Don't let her go to trial because of me. If you can, lead her down a different path. He left everything, staff lists, offshore accounts, the detailed operation, and one final sentence: she's the one thing I couldn't control. And the only thing I didn't want to destroy. Tracing the embedded encryption, I found a hidden cloud storage with all the documents proving Zhonglin's criminal network and undeniable evidence that KINH was unaware and not complicit. I brought the file to her. Her hands trembled as she saw the papers. She cried, but said nothing. I gently whispered, I'm a police officer. But I'm also a man who loves you with all my heart. And today, in both roles, I will protect you not through concealment, but through the truth. And the court ruled, suspended sentence. I never told her who sent the emails. She never asked. We both understood, some sacrifices don't need recognition.